Today we're going to be looking at this bag of bootleg Ninja Turtle toys. We take a look at the bootleg versions of the Ninja Turtle figures from NECA. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Bandai bootleg of Deadpool. Today we're going to be taking a look at another bootleg action figure, this time the Amazing Spider-Man by CT Toys. We're going to be taking a look at this Mafex knockoff brown suited Wolverine figure from CT Toys. To me it looks like the bootleggers have managed to reproduce the 1992 Playmates line, the movie star action figures that was released for the Secret of the Use. Obviously these don't have that rubbery texture though. So for £10 for 6 figures, I thought why not, and I thought it'd make an interesting video, so here we go.
So, you bought trash?
Yeah, but I did it for the video.
So you bought trash?
Okay, so yeah, the arm is loose, but we should be able to click that back in, hopefully. Oh, that wasn't a nice sound. So yeah, I managed to get the arm back on. It's staying in place. If you lift it too far up, it will drop off again, but it is back on there and it's okay. I wouldn't recommend it for kids. It depends how old they are. You don't want any choking hazards with this because that arm does drop off and God knows what else is going to fall off as we're going through these. The paint job on this figure is a little bit worse for worse. Donatello's eyes are a little bit wonky. You could say he has a McFarlane side eye if you want to excuse it. But the rest of the paint job on this is definitely ropey. The shell here, you can see where it's got the green around the edges. I'm pretty sure that is supposed to be all yellow. I have actually got a Michelangelo from the original Playmates release that we can compare to the figures later. I'm going to bring that over when we actually review Michelangelo, then we can see them actually side by side and see where the differences lie. But yeah, like I said, it's when you consider with £10 for 6 figures, you can't grumble really, you can't complain. If you want some cheap figures for your kids, you know, these are probably decent enough. Like I said, beware of the small parts that are falling off them though. As we turn Donatello round, you can see that the paint job is bad on the shell as well. You can see there that it's been painted green around the edges. Pretty sure it wasn't like that on the originals. So here we have Raphael, and the first thing you probably notice is the eyes. Just like Donatello, the eyes are definitely wonky, but on this one they look kind of horrific. They look like they're actually bulging from his head. The paint job, once again, is a bit iffy around the shell. It's a bit iffy around the back of the shell. And you can see some paint smudges as well on the actual arm here, what have come off the leg and armbands. And it is a very rushed, botched job. But that is probably what they're going for anyway in these factories. They're just rushing to get them through, to get them, you know, on sale. So as you can see, Leonardo has come out of the package with his arm loose like Donatello did. I'm just going to pop that back on, and there you go. With a little bit of effort, his arm is back on. One thing I will say about these figures is that the paint job has made the joints stiff, and when you turn them you hear a horrible crack that kind of scares you a little bit. Well, not that much considering the bootlegs, you expect them to break sometimes. But yeah, there is a horrible crack when you turn the neck. I've saved this one for camera actually. Also included one sword, just one. I'm pretty sure Leonardo had 2 swords, but according to these bootlegs, Leonardo only has the one. And there he is holding his wonky sword, and you can try and bend it back into shape, but it's just going to go back wonky. His eyes are also wonky, just like the other 2, but this is probably the best one out of the 3 so far. The belt on Leonardo seems to be the belt that you would use for Donatello. I'm pretty sure that is not the original Leonardo belt. Apart from that, it's just more or less the same as the other figures, really. And next we have a foot soldier, and this, it's the same sculpt as the original foot soldier from 1992, but the paint job is definitely different. On the whole though, I suppose it's not too bad. They can't really mess much up with this with the paint job, apart from getting it completely wrong. The eyes are okay, there's a little bit of smudging on the bandana. This has actually got a little bit of articulation compared to the Ninja Turtles. It's got these swivel joints here on the arms, and the forearm is actually attached as well, so you can kind of move it around. Obviously the head moves. He's got this strange looking blue bat, what they've thrown in with him. At the back he's got a holder with a screw holding him together. Yeah, on the whole it's just a foot soldier really. Okay, next we have Splinter, and once again he is also suffering with wonky eyes. He's got one eye going this way, he's got one eye going that way. I'm pretty sure when this figure was released in the movie line, he had a furry effect to him as well, and he was brown. I believe they released the same sculpt for the Ninja Turtles 3 figure release as well, but I believe he was painted brown. Obviously, underneath the fur of the Secret of the Ooze line, I couldn't tell whether this was exactly the same Splinter. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm like 90% sure that they were the actual same figure that Playmates just released, but when they released it for the third film, they released it without the fur, and he was brown, he wasn't grey. Paint job's not too bad on this one because it's just all grey. They put a bit of flesh colour around the hands here. Looks like he's got most of the same weapons that he had in the packet as well, and his tail is there. It's a little bit loose and, you know, cheap, but you know, that's what you can expect. But on the whole, not too bad. Okay, so here's Michelangelo, and straight away you might notice that he's not wearing a belt, and that is because the belt that was sent with him looks to me like it belongs to Raphael, which means Raphael is actually wearing Michelangelo's belt, and I thought it was a little bit too big for him, so that might explain that. So let's just sort that out. So now that we're actually having a look at Michelangelo, let me bring over my original 1992 Playmates figure from the movie star line. And here's the original, and as you can see straight away, the comparison between the two is night and day. This one looks miles better, obviously, because it's the original, even though I haven't got any of the accessories anymore. The detail on this is amazing. I believe this was the first time that they actually attempted to do a movie accurate figure, and I remember at the time when I got it as a kid, I absolutely loved it. I love that the arms were this kind of rubbery material that you could bend around, because the Ninja Turtles hadn't really been articulated up to this point, and well, if you can call it articulation, I did as a kid, because you could bend them anywhere you wanted. You could get some really high kicks in. With the other ones you were kind of restricted a little bit. You can tell on the original Playmates figure that you've got all these little freckles that they painted in there. The paint job is obviously a lot more neater, and this figure seems to be ever so slightly bigger than the bootleg, only just a tiny little bit bigger. Another thing I've noticed is that the scratch marks on the shell are different. Now I'm presuming that one of the other turtles had different scratch marks on the shell, and that is what they've used for these knockoff bodies, but obviously I only have Michelangelo, so I can only compare Michelangelo to these. And let's just turn them around to see what it looks like at the back. Yeah, and like I said before, you can see here that the shell should all be brown, and obviously on this one they've painted it green around the edges. Other than that, it looks like, whoops, like I said before, the whole shell should be brown, not with this green around the edge here. And you could just see that the paint is absolutely awful on the bootleg, which is to be expected. I'm not acting surprised, I'm just stating the obvious. So yeah, here they all are lined up next to each other, and like I said, the quality is atrocious on these. It is. That goes without saying. However, they were £10. If you're thinking about buying these for your young son or daughter, then just make sure that they're not going to put any of the bits in the mouth if any of these bits obviously fall off. But that goes without saying with any toy. Like I said, for £10, they're not bad if you just want to get your kids a throwaway toy. For a collector, probably not. I will say this though, I am thinking about repainting them, just to see whether I can do it, to be honest, just to see whether I can bring them back to some kind of life, make them look a little bit better than what they do. But that's just going to be me just playing around, to be honest. But if there is one good thing that has come out of this purchase for me, it is that Michelangelo can finally have a belt. Because this Michelangelo figure here has been missing his belt for about 25 years maybe. So I think it's time now to take this belt off this bootleg and place it onto Michelangelo. And even though he doesn't have any nunchucks to put in the belt, I'm that little bit closer to having him complete once again, kind of. Until next time, I'll see you very soon. Bye bye. Now, if you were to buy a bootleg version of your favourite action figure, you can expect it to be a truly awful replica of the original. Normally they don't look quite right. In fact, 9 times out of 10 they don't look anything like the original figure, and they are made from very cheap plastic that break very easily. You will find that the joints are normally very weak and the paint job is truly awful. But normally you won't know this until they actually arrive, because normally on websites like AliExpress, eBay and Wish.com they use fake pictures to fool you into thinking you're getting something of quality when you're actually not. But every now and again a bootleg is released that don't actually look too bad and too far from the original. I mean, sure, if you have a keen eye for these things you will notice that they are bootlegs, but at the end of the day if the original figure is just out of your price point, if it's gone into the collector's realm and you just can't afford it and they've gone off the market, a bootleg may be your best option. These are my bootleg versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles originally from NECA, and I've got to say, I think they are hands down some of the best bootlegs I have ever seen. I would even say that they rival the originals. Now, when I bought these figures a couple of years back, I paid about £40 for the entire set, so as you can understand, my expectations were low, but when I received them, I couldn't have been more happier. They had multicoloured headbands. For instance, Raphael had red, Leonardo had blue, Donatello had purple, and Michelangelo had orange. This is not what I wanted from the NECA figures. I wanted them all to have the red headbands, but at the time I just couldn't find them anywhere. I could only find the bootleg versions with the coloured headbands. But this wasn't a problem. When they arrived I actually painted them all red as they were in the original comic books, apart from Raphael of course, who was red to begin with. I was a little bit nervous about painting them up. I'm not the greatest painter and I do make mistakes here and there, so I bought myself the finest brush I could find and I really did take my time, and I don't think you can actually tell the difference. I think I did a good job. I was quite proud of this, to be honest. Now, like I said, at the time when I was thinking about purchasing these, if I had a choice, I would have much preferred to have the original NECA figures. I don't really like buying bootleg, but they were out of the question. The price was so high just for one of these figures. So I thought I'd take a chance on buying the entire set for, like I said, £40, and I couldn't have been more happy with the results. In fact, I've watched videos reviewing these bootleg figures against the originals, and they actually 9 times out of 10 come out on top. Now, I simply thought I'll take a chance, I'll spend the £40, and if they arrive and they are truly awful, then I've learned a lesson. But I couldn't have been more pleased with the figures that I received. Now, I just thought I'd bring the camera a little bit closer so we can have a close-up look at these figures, and you can see for yourself just how well detailed they are and well made they are actually. Like I said, I keep saying this, for bootlegs, I was very surprised at the quality of these figures, especially for the price that I paid. Now, first of all, we have Raphael, and like I said, I hardly did anything to him. I didn't touch him up at all, I don't think, because I didn't need to, because he automatically wears the red bandana anyway. So there was very little touching up to this. I didn't do any painting on this. This is exactly how they came out of the box. And as you can see, they are very good quality. I think some of the main differences between this figure and the original one is very few and far between. I mean, I think there is a slight difference with the shell at the front. Not the mould, but the durability of it. I think the NECA one doesn't bend as much, but this one does. Or maybe it's the other way around, I can't remember. But it's not noticeable at all. Now, as you bring the figure closer, you will see that the joints are actually well made. They don't feel like they're going to break. They feel quite stiff actually. Now, normally with NECA this is a bad thing because you fear that the figure is going to break when you move the arm. But with this, somehow it's stiff, but it still feels very durable. Like it's not going to break in you. It feels workable, and it's a good thing. Here's Leonardo, and like I said before, he came with the blue bandana, so I took paint to it and I painted it red, and I don't think I did a bad job at all. I'm actually quite proud of this, and as you can see, the figure is very well detailed for a bootleg, and like I said, I'm just amazed by these figures, how good they actually are. I think they are one of the best bootleg figures I've ever seen. And I have had a few in my time, and a lot of them, not turtle figures, like I think I had a Deadpool figure and a Wolverine figure, and they were awful. The bits just fell off, the arms, the legs fell off, and the paint jobs were awful. They just didn't quite look right, but these, in my opinion, are absolutely perfect. Angelo, and like I said, he came with the orange bandana originally, which I painted red. As you can see, the detail all around is fantastic on this guy, and as you can see, he's got a little tail there, just like all the others do as well. I do believe in the original comics they had these little tails, and then when they made the transition over to the cartoon, it was decided to do away with the tails because they did actually look a little bit strange from the front, as you can see. And I do believe originally the 1987 molds of the original Turtles did have these tails included, and the toy manufacturer just said no, I don't think we should have that because it looks like something else. And then we have Donatello, and once again I painted his bandana to a red colour, and as you can see, the quality of this figure, just like the others, is fantastic. Okay, so here we are, the Bandai bootleg version of Deadpool from Deadpool 2. The box is a little bit battered and bumped, and you know, it's not in the best of shape, so I can't actually stand it up, so I'll have to hold it into position here. As you can see straight off, the artwork on the front, the printing is very poor, a telltale sign that you've got a bootleg. But yeah, all I'm bothered about really is what is inside. And as you can see on this side, it's got these stickers over the top here from the factory. Yeah, it's come in very, very poor shape. But as long as the inside is okay, the figure inside, as long as that's in good condition, I'm not really too fussed about the box. And here he is. Okay, so as you can see, this figure comes with so many accessories. One of the main reasons I bought this was because I wanted this little smoke effect that's coming out of the pistol, because I have a Harley Quinn statue and she also had one of these smoke effects coming out of her pistol and it broke off when I was moving house. So I'm hoping to recycle one of these smoke effects and put it onto the Harley Quinn figure. We'll see how that goes a little later on. Okay, so here we have a closer up look at these weapons that come in this pack, and they are all very, very impressive and really well painted actually. I'm quite impressed with these, if you can just make them out there. They're really nice, and I like these blast effects that you get here. Like I said, even if the figure wasn't a good bootleg, the accessories that come with it are well worth the money. This cost me, I think it was around £10 or £9, I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't far off a tenner. And these are really well detailed, and like I said, these would be perfect if you have an action figure that really needs some guns. And like I said, I need this smoke effect here on this gun to attach to a Harley Quinn statue that I have where this smoke effect broke off. This thing comes with so many different accessories. These are little interchangeable eye sockets that you can change on Deadpool's head to give him different expressions. We also get a tiny little blade. We get the collar that you saw in Deadpool 2 that, you know, stops his powers. The paint work on this is, I don't know, it's subpar. It's fine, I'm not going to be using it anyway. And then we get Deadpool swords. Now inside here you don't get the full swords, you just get the hilt. You get the top of the sword that you can clip on. Maybe you can insert his actual swords, we'll have a look at that in a moment. Okay, so here is one of Deadpool's little swords, and as you can see, it's got a bit of blood around the hilt here, which is very nice. The paintwork isn't that bad actually, it's quite nicely done for a bootleg. And let's just see whether it actually fits into this. No, it doesn't. So I presume that when he's actually holding these in his hands, you would just take off the top to make it look like he's just took them out of his sheath. And we also get quite a lot of interchangeable hands, which will, you know, bring Deadpool alive when you're posing him, putting him in different poses, giving him different gestures to make. This is really cool to have all these. I'm not 100% sure what this is in the bottom corner here. I've had a look at it, I can't figure out what it is. If you know, just leave a comment in the comment section and let me know. Okay, so we'll just borrow this stand from Superman here, and this should be more than sufficient. And then let's get Deadpool on this stand and get him into some cool poses and see whether he is actually worth £10 of your hard-earned cash. Okay, so first off, this figure isn't great, to be totally honest. I mean, when you look at it from afar, it looks okay. But when you get a little bit closer, you can see that these joints are a little bit unsightly. Around the arms and around the waist here especially. And the plastic is moulded very roughly, especially around his backside area. As you can see, the plastic is a little bit worse for worse. But from afar, it's not too bad. The other thing is, I'm finding it near enough impossible to pose him, to stand him up, that is. He will not stand on his own. And when he does, he basically falls over more or less straight away. So you're going to need a stand for this guy. You're not going to be able to pose him on his own. You're going to need a stand. That's a little bit of a disappointment. The other thing as well, and this is a big thing for me, the holsters that attach to his hip are of the same mould. Meaning that this holster is exactly the same as that holster. So when you put his gun in here, it's facing the wrong way. And I believe that this is an issue with all of these bootleg figures that are sent out. They all have the same moulded holster, which is a pain. But maybe if you pose him on an angle, you won't see the holster, and maybe you can get away with it that way, always having this gun in his hand or both guns in his hand. I think the main selling point with this guy, if you're going to take the plunge and buy this, is the accessories. You get so many accessories in this box, and they will come in handy for using on different figurines. You know, a lot of figures now, especially McFarlane, they don't really come with guns. So maybe you've got a figure that desperately needs a gun. This could be your answer. And they've got some cool swords in there as well. Other than that, am I being a little bit too harsh on the figure? Maybe just a little bit, considering it's a bootleg. You know, you've got to keep that in mind. And from a distance, it will probably look okay on your shelf. But there's just too many negatives for me to be happy with about this. It's just, it doesn't look great. It feels a bit tacky. The holster problem is a big problem for me. And the joints just look absolutely horrendous. But for a £10 bootleg figure, I suppose you could say it's not too bad. But yeah, I will probably say I can't recommend this one. I'll probably give it a thumbs down. But if you want to spend £10 instead of, what, maybe an £80 price point, yeah, it's not too bad. I'm really torn on this. I'm torn on it. Let's get into some poses and let's see if we change our mind. Okay, so what do you think of this pose? Does that change your mind? Does that make you feel a little bit better about this figure? I don't think it's too bad, actually. I've changed my view on it a little bit. The holster thing is still a bit of an issue for me. How it's facing the wrong way. But when you've got him in a cool pose like this, he doesn't look too bad, actually. And I think he would look quite nice on the shelf. From afar, definitely from afar, but he's not too bad overall. Let's get him in another pose. And here we have him in an action pose, and he doesn't look too bad. You know, the joints are being hidden a little bit by the posing. One thing I've just noticed is there on the shoulder, you can see the crack in the plastic. It is definitely a shoddy bootleg, it really is, and the neck joint I'm not 100% pleased with. But once you've got him in a pose, from a distance, he doesn't look too bad, you've got to agree. But it isn't a flawless bootleg like some are. But this one, I'd say it's acceptable. Okay, so I've just got him into this pose, holding his swords, and he doesn't look too bad. I will say I had a bit of a hard time getting the swords into the hands. They really didn't want to go in there. But eventually they went in. I felt like I was going to break them at one point, but I didn't. So it's all good there, I suppose. Like I said, I just think it looks ugly. The joints just look ugly. You've got to get it in a pose where you can't see those ugly joints. Another thing I'll say, when I was trying to get the swords into his hand, this little piece of plastic fell off, and I'm not sure where it came from, but it fell off the figure from somewhere, and that is not a good thing. It looks okay, especially in the right pose. The fact that he doesn't stand up on his own is a big issue for me. Because I don't have a lot of spare stands, so that means I'm going to have to invest in one if I'm bothered, you know, if I want to invest in one for this figure. I think the biggest draw to this figure is the accessories, and that is one of the reasons I bought this, because I actually need this smoke effect. So yeah, I've got this Harley Quinn statue here, absolutely love it, but the smoke effect broke off the gun when I moved house. So one of the reasons I bought this Deadpool figure is because this pistol has the smoke effect, and I thought I could break it off the gun and just attach it onto the Harley Quinn figurine there, and I think it would look quite perfect if it was just like that, just coming out of the gun. And that's what I'll probably do. I'll just kind of twist this off here. And I will apply a bit of super glue and just attach it to the Harley Quinn figurine there. So I've got the smoke effect again. That is one of the reasons I got this. So for that reason, good purchase. Quality of figure, not great, but for £10, not bad either. If you're looking for a Deadpool figure that is dirt cheap, this one is a good choice. But if you're willing to pay a little bit more, I would definitely advise that you go for the Marvel Legends. That is miles better than this one in many different ways. It's just out of this world, that figure. It looks amazing. I haven't got it yet, but I know someone who has, and it looks absolutely amazing. This one, I would probably say keep away from it if you're willing to spend maybe £10 or £15 more. Go for the Marvel Legends one before it goes up in price, because it will, because this new movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, is absolutely amazing. And this guy is actually from Deadpool 2. You know, I'd definitely go for the Marvel Legends over this any day of the week. But for £10, it's not bad. So first of all, let's take a look at the packaging, and to be totally honest, it's not too bad. Yeah, it does feel a little bit cheap, but I have seen a lot worse. And this came wrapped in bubble wrap, so it came in pretty good condition, really. I've seen a lot of these bootlegs arrive all dinted and bashed and trashed, but this one, it's not too bad at all. Even the print work on it looks pretty decent. But to be totally honest, I'm not really going to be keeping the box anyway, but I know a lot of you like to know what kind of condition the box is in. So yeah, it's flimsy, it's cheap, you can tell it's cheap, but it does the job and it's come in one piece. But let's face it, we're not here for the box, we're here to look at the actual figure inside the box. And, you know, just looking at it from here, I think we're going to be pretty impressed. Okay, so straight off, I'm already really impressed, just because they give us a stand with this figure, which I love. I love it when we get a stand included. I don't know why, I don't know, it just feels like they're giving us that little bit extra. We've got the Spider-Man figure here with the alternate head, and we've got all these different hands what you can put on him as well. I believe there may be a pair of hands with magnets on as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we've got some feet and we've got some magnet hands as well, so if we want to, we can go and stick him on the fridge. And then also we've got all these different webs here that we can connect to his hand. I really like this one here, that one's quite cool. Let's crack him open and take a closer look. Okay, so here he is out of the box, and I've got to say that this guy feels like pure quality, which is a rarity for a bootleg. The plastic normally feels cheap, normally feels brittle. This thing doesn't at all. It feels like quality in my hands. The plastic feels like really good quality, and it's really well articulated. The joints are stiff. It doesn't feel like anything's going to drop off him, which is what you normally think when you get a bootleg. And like I said before, you get all these accessories as well. You get the stand, you get all these different pairs of hands, which is great if you do photography. You can pose them in different ways with different hands on them. And then of course, like I said before, you've got the magnetic hands and the magnetic feet, so you can stick them on the fridge if you wish. And then you've got all these different webs as well, which are very, very cool. I believe you unclip the hand and you hook the web on with these little hooks and then peg the hand back in, and then away you go. And then we have this extra head sculpt, which is very cool. He's got a bit more of a sterner look on this one, and the paint work is absolutely immaculate, and that's something else I want to bring up as well. The paint work on this figure is brilliant. Normally when you get a bootleg, you can expect it to be a little bit sloppy when it comes to paint, and yes, if you look closely, there are inconsistencies, like with the webbing. It's missing a little bit of paint here and there, but not enough to bother me at all. If I wanted to, I could always go in there with a fine pen and, you know, bring them lines out a little bit more. But to be honest, it doesn't bother me. I know it's there because I've looked for it, but from afar you wouldn't be able to tell. And like I said before, the quality of the plastic is absolutely amazing for a bootleg. The joints are nice and stiff. It doesn't feel like anything's going to fall off this. It's really, really well articulated everywhere. It kind of reminds me of a DC Icons figure as well. I think it's probably because of the size and the different bits of articulation, and it is giving me DC Icon vibes. I know it should be giving me Mafex vibes, but it's giving me DC Icon vibes for some reason, probably because of the size. But it's really, really well put together, and like I said, it feels like quality. There is a funny smell coming from it. It's not a bad smell, but it is a strong odour coming from it. But I suppose that will disappear as time goes by. Let's just have a sniff. Okay, the best way to describe the smell, and some people might disagree with me on this if you pick it up, it smells like a balloon. You know when you get a balloon out of a packet and it has that certain smell to it, the rubbery smell. It smells a little bit like that for some reason. So it's not a bad smell, but there is a smell to it. There is an odour on it, but like I said, that'll just disappear in time. Not an issue at all. And on the back of him here we have the classic big red spider, which is really, really well painted. Like I said before, I'm going to keep going on about the paintwork on this because it's absolutely beautiful. Normally on a bootleg, you can expect to see some inconsistencies with the paint. You can expect to see smudges here and there. And so far, the only smudge I've seen is here on the belt. Let me just kind of focus on that. Right there. And I just don't care. Because can you see it from over here? Let's focus again. Not really. Not if you're not looking for it. So let's get this guy in some poses and show you just how cool he really is. Actually, I almost forgot, before we do get him into some cool poses, let's first try the magnetic feet and the magnetic hands and see how well he actually sticks to the fridge. Okay, so first we'll try him forward facing. See if he can stick. These magnets are not that strong, to be honest. So if I just... Okay, moment of truth. Up. Yeah. He's kind of... There we go. Okay, so he does stick, but he's not going to stay there, let's be honest. Let's try him the other way. Oh look, the magnets just come out. The magnets come out of his foot. I can't get it off. Let's see if we can put that back in. Yeah, that magnet keeps coming out of his foot. Yeah, it's not the best when it comes to sticking to the fridge. It kind of... I think the magnets are far too weak. Okay, so finally that took some doing, but he does actually stay on. Let's just give it the... So yeah, the magnets on this guy are a little bit too weak. You will get it to stick with a little bit of perseverance, but it will probably just fall off again within the next 5 minutes or so. I'm not sure whether the Mafex figure have better magnets than this one. If you've got the original one, let me know in the comments section. But yeah, the magnets on this guy are a little bit of a miss, if you ask me. But to be perfectly honest, I never intended to have this guy stuck on my fridge. I intended to have him on my shelf in a cool pose. So let's see what kind of cool poses we can get him in. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Mafex knockoff brown suited Wolverine figure from CT Toys. Now, this isn't the first CT Toys figure I have in my possession. I also have the Spider-Man figure, which is another Mayfix knockoff from CT Toys, and it's absolutely amazing. I think it's possibly one of the best bootleg figures I have ever seen. Of course, the sculpts on these, on both of them, is going to be a little bit smaller than the original, but they're absolutely out of this world. And I paid about £18 for this, and I think this one was about £15, but the prices fluctuate. And if you shop around, you can get a good price. I think £18 was a pretty good price. Well, I'm saying that, but maybe we should open it first and have a look. Okay, so first of all, we'll start with the box. And it's pretty good, actually. It's a little bit flimsy. You can tell it's a bootleg box. But number one, the box has come in pretty good condition. It's done the job. It's protected the figure. It actually came in quite a lot of bubble wrap, which I appreciated. When you buy something from AliExpress, you can normally expect it to come a little bit battered and bashed. This one came in pretty good condition, so I'm happy about that. And the box is fairly nice for a bootleg. The print works quite nice, and it's all nice and secure in there. Let's crack it open. And here he is out of the box, and he does look very nice. First impressions are pretty good, but before we have a look at him, let's first have a look at the accessories that you get with him. First of all, you get this alternative pair of hands, which are very, very nicely sculpted. And of course you get the hands with the claws popping out, and I've got to say these are probably some of the best claws I've seen on any Wolverine figure. Even considering it's a bootleg, these claws look pretty sweet. Get an alternative head where he's kind of grimacing a little bit. And you get this awesome Wolverine unmasked head. Now normally this is where bootlegs fall short for me. Normally I find when they're actually painting an actual face that hasn't got a mask on, it normally looks a little bit ropey, but this one looks really nice. And as you can see there inside the mouth, the attention to detail is just spot on, and the paintwork is actually very, very neat. This is very cool. And of course, as we get the unmasked head, we also get the mask itself that can drape over the back of his back, and we'll try that on in a moment. Okay, and here he is with his claws out, and now he really does look like Wolverine. I've got to say, this figure is absolutely amazing. It is almost flawless. I say almost. I have found a few issues with it, but nothing major. I'm more than happy with it. I'm over the moon with it. I've had a few Wolverine figures in the past, and I've sold them because I weren't 100% happy with them. But I think this figure may actually be the best one I've ever had, and it's a bootleg. I don't really like Marvel Legends. I'm not a massive fan of the Marvel Legends figures. I just think there's something off about them. I don't think they're terrible, but for me, there's just something not quite right. And I've always liked the Mayfix figures. So when I found that they were doing a bootleg version, I just had to snap it up and see what it was like for myself. And it looks absolutely amazing. Like I said before, I think the Mayfix ones are a little bit bigger because obviously they've used a mold to get this figure off the Mayfix figure. So it will be a little bit smaller. That's normally what you find, but that doesn't bother me at all. They look a little bit like the DC Icons line. They remind me of those in a lot of ways because they kind of scale the same. And just like the knockoff Mayfix Spider-Man figure that we reviewed in a past video, it also comes with a very nifty little stand, which I do appreciate it. I love it when the figures get a stand, because 9 times out of 10 I have a problem with them all falling over, so it's quite nice to get a stand. But like I said, there are a few paint issues, and you've probably noticed it as this guy's spinning around on here, but I'm going to take this camera off this stand and we're going to get a little bit closer, and I'm going to show you just a few of the little issues that I found with it, but trust me, they're not major. Okay, so I've got him in this very unusual pose here, so I can just show you some of the discrepancies that I found, which I'm not even sure are actually worth mentioning, but we'll have a look at them anyway. Here on the costume, it's supposed to be brown, and it looks like they've smudged a little bit of the skin tone paint on there as well. It's actually like that on the other side as well. It's not a major problem because once his arms are down, you won't even see it. When this figure's posed, it won't be a problem. Also, there's a little bit of yellow on the skin colour here, but it's more inside the figure than anything, so that also won't be an issue. They've got this kind of two-tone paint here on the arms, which I'm not sure is intentional. That may be the case on the original Mayfix figure as well. I'm not 100% sure, but it does look a little bit strange. But like I said before, once this figure is posed, it's not that much of an eyesore at all. I actually think it's probably meant to be like that, some kind of shading maybe. But as you can see, everywhere else on the body, the paintwork seems to be pretty sweet. It's very neat, very clean, and very tidy. Even on the face. The face is absolutely amazing and really well detailed, really well painted. and just, in my opinion, pretty much flawless. Pretty much flawless. Another thing I've noticed is the pins on the arms. And there we go. I don't know if you can make that out, but the pins on the arms seem to be a golden colour. Now, I think this may be on purpose to kind of hide the flesh tone in there, because if they were silver it would look a little bit unsightly. I'm not sure whether the original Mafex have golden pins on the arms or not, but yeah, that's something that I found unusual. I've not really seen that on many figures before. Maybe it's just me, maybe I just haven't noticed that before, but I thought it was quite strange to see golden pins. But like I said, maybe it's to disguise the flesh tone maybe, but that is something that did stick out to me. But like I said before, once this figure's posed, it's not a massive issue. And I actually think the two tones of paint on the arms is actually on purpose. I think it's a shading detail, because I've actually done it on the yellow here as well, on the ribs, to give it a different shading colour. And it does look quite good actually. It's not an eyesore at all, it's quite nice. And this is most definitely my favourite Wolverine suit. I do like the brown and yellow. I'm pretty sure this is John Byrne's version of Wolverine, the artist who drew quite a lot of Superman comics as well, and that's where I primarily know that artist from, because I was a massive fan back in, I think it was 1987 when they rebooted the DC Universe, and John Byrne was the guy to do the artwork on the first 6 issues, I want to say, of Superman, and I think he did a few more after that as well. But I've always liked his artwork since that, and I think that's why this version of Wolverine resonates with me so much, because I love John Byrne, and this suit is just so iconic. I wasn't a massive X-Men fan as a kid. I mean, I love the cartoon, but when it came to the comics, I didn't read that much really. But I remember having a big graphic novel of Wolverine, and I believe in that series he just left the X-Men for some reason, and he was going on his own adventures, and I'm pretty sure he was wearing this suit. Now, admittedly, the comic books I was reading at the time were in black and white, but I'm pretty sure it was this suit, and this is one of my favourite suits because of that reason. Now, articulation wise, you're going to get a pretty good range on this figure. It's pretty well articulated, obviously, just like the Mafex ones are, and they are well known for getting these figures into some very cool poses. The joints are quite stiff, which is pretty good. What I mean by that is they're not too stiff that you're going to break them, but they're not flapping around everywhere like some bootlegs do. This is pretty sweet. You've got the articulation in the chest, in the legs, the ankles, the arms, obviously. Everything moves, everything. The neck has got a good pivot on it. You can look down, you can look left and right. Very cool. So now let's try in with this unmasked head. So first of all, you just pop the head off, and then you get the mask and you slip it around the neck peg like so. So it's kind of like draped over his back there. And then we get the unmasked head and just pop it on there. And that was actually quite easy. And here he is with that unmasked head sculpt, and I think it looks very, very cool. It is really nicely sculpted, really nicely painted, and I think it just looks awesome, especially with the mask draping over his back there. But it's not the head sculpt I'm going to display him with. I like the masked head sculpt with the big ears. I think that looks awesome, but this looks pretty sweet as well. This is really, really nice, and like I said before, for a bootleg, to get so much detail into an actual face that doesn't look terrible is actually quite refreshing. And here he is with the alternative head sculpt, where he seems to be grimacing a little bit, which is very cool. Nice head sculpt to have him in an attack pose like this one. And this figure, you can get it in loads of poses. This, like I said before, this figure is really, really well articulated, just like the Spider-Man figure that we reviewed last time as well. This one is actually amazing, and so is this. It'll be quite interesting actually to see how they scale together. Let's do that now. And there they are, stood next to each other, and they're actually scaling pretty well together. They look like So yeah, they do actually scale quite well together. They're actually the same size. I was actually expecting Spider-Man to kind of stand a little bit taller than Wolverine, because this is like a comic book accurate Wolverine, like a dinky Wolverine, but it looks right. It doesn't look wrong, and it looks quite sweet. And as you could see before, they fell off the stand. This is why these stands that CT Toys provide are so welcomed, because these guys only have little feet, and you know, they might stand for a while, but they will eventually fall over. In my case especially, my figures are always tumbling over, so it's so good when they include a stand as well. But as you can see, they go really, really well together. I'm most definitely going to have Spider-Man in the posing section of this video when we show off what Wolverine can actually do.